Hello everyone, welcome back to Tantra's Mantra where we go behind and beyond the tech news headlines. I'm your host Prakash Sangam, founder and principal at Tantra Analyst. It's been a while since we talked about AI on this show, and that's by design. There's already too many discussions and a lot of hype on the subject. I did not want to add more to it. But today we are focusing on an aspect of AI that is not so much part of the hype cycle, but very important nonetheless. And especially when we look toward the future, and that's edge AI. Firstly, everybody has their own definition of edge. For some, it is just the device. For others, it is the just the edge infrastructure. And for many like me, it's more inclusive, encompassing not just the device and the edge infrastructure like edge servers, gateways, and so on, also the connectivity and the fabric that connects all these together. So this definition is even more applicable in the enterprise scenarios and use cases where there'll be increased use of AI and so on. So we all know the advantages of edge AI, right? Or running AI on the edge. There is for security, privacy, personalization, specificity, and other reasons. And the challenges are also to extent well known. Power is a major concern, especially for battery powered devices and so on. There is has been a lot of talk of AI moving towards the edge, but still today most of the AI, especially the Gen AI, where all the rage is nowadays, still runs on the cloud. So, what are the challenges in moving that to the edge? What is needed to make that happen and such? Well, all good questions, and we have an excellent expert to talk about those, and that is somebody who's been championing Edge AI for some time. It's Pete Bernard, CEO of industry advocacy group Edge AI Foundation. Pete, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Prakash. Really appreciate it. Good to be here.
Perfect. So you worked for a long time on edge side of things, right? No pun intended. Both at Microsoft and now as the head of Edge AI Foundation. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing sort of like where software meets hardware pretty much for my whole career. I mean, I actually started as a BIOS engineer for Phoenix Technologies in Boston many
Uh-huh.
years ago. Got out to Silicon Valley, did embedded Java, things like that, and then eventually got to Microsoft working on their phone platforms. I was part of the original Zune team, using
Uh-huh.
ran the Windows on Snapdragon program, and then got into this new group, which we called Azure Edge. So it was Azure engineering for edge devices and edge AI.
Uh-huh.
So I was at Microsoft for about 18 years doing all that stuff, and that was a lot of fun.
Yep.
And then I left in 2023,
Mm-hmm.
and was already familiar with this nonprofit called the TinyML Foundation,
Uh-huh.
and knew the folks that had started that, and they were looking for someone to run it and kind of I don't say reboot it, but just kind of update it a little bit for what was happening because at the time,
Mm-hmm.
not long ago, a year and a half ago, I mean the conversation has shifted into a much broader AI discussion around edge
Yep.
and what's happening in that space. So I came in and took that org over. We rebranded it as the Edge AI Foundation
Uh-huh.
uh, late last year, and we got a ton of new partners and new conversations going on, and working with academia, and it's been great.
Perfect. So as I mentioned, everybody has their own definition of edge. How do you define from Edge AI Foundation? What is edge for you guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, edge is a relative term,
Yeah.
and that's tough sometimes in the tech world for people to have sort of non-deterministic relative terms.
Yeah.
So I totally get that.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's an inclusive term that really talks about running AI workloads outside of multi-tenant data centers.
Okay.
So I would say, the hyperscaler and the multi-tenant data centers is certainly there's a lot happening in that space, which is valuable,
Yeah.
especially on the training side. But on the inferencing side, Edge AI really talks about running AI where the data is created,
Correct. Yeah.
or as close to where the data is created as possible,
Yeah.
right? So many things around us in a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
I think 75-80% of all the data out there that's being run by AI is created on the edge.
Correct. Yeah.
It's created in the real world. I mean, our tagline is connecting AI to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And so one definition of edge is the real world. you know, and maybe that's good enough. But
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, it is the real world. It's in cars and it's in cameras and it's in agriculture and your doorbell and all that other good stuff.
It's exactly where the rubber meets the road, right?
Exactly, literally where the rubber
Yeah.
meets the road. Yes.
Cool. So yeah, we mentioned about Tiny ML Foundation, repositioned as AGI Foundation and such. So, and I think it's appropriate and timely. Tell us about the transition. Is it just rebranding? Is there a total reorchestration in terms of partners? What you do, what the mission is, who you work with, and so on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the Tiny Mel Foundation was founded in around 2018
Yeah.
by a bunch of folks that are trying to figure out how to do AI in very resource constrained
Mm-hmm.
environments, and that was probably the right place to start.
Yeah.
I mean, over time, obviously, we figured out how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and although there's still a lot of research happening in this
Mm-hmm.
space, it's also evolved to include other architectures and workloads, and frankly, also a discussion around applied edge AI, like how does it get actually deployed and commercialized in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And so the as I came into it, it was pretty clear that the technical scope had changed,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now we're talking about generative AI models on the
Yeah.
edge. We're talking about, obviously CNNs and RNNs and things, but all kinds of models and
Yeah.
architectures. And also we're talking more about, I would say the business, the impact in industry and culture in terms of running AI workloads in the real world. So
Mm-hmm.
that really necessitated for us a rebranding,
Mm-hmm.
kind of keep up with the scope of AI, frankly. And it's been great. I mean, we came out with a new look,
Mm-hmm.
a new name, but we've kept, the core, obviously the core set of engagements from technology partners and universities and researchers. But we've added, folks like Intel, we've added Advantech,
Mm-hmm.
we've added we've added Dell, we've added like some of the bigger players in the edge AI space to complement some of the like the neuromorphics and the sensor based folks as well. So it's really I call the community, it's like from metal to cloud, from pre seed to big tech. Like that's our universe of edge AI, which is pretty cool.
So you positioning yourself as advocacy group for this concept of edge AI, or is it training? Is it?
Yeah, I consider us to be like the epicenter of edge AI,
Uh,
which is the place to come to and join to learn about edge AI, to learn about who's doing what, to learn about how it works,
yeah.
how it can work for you, to collaborate, with other partners in this space,
Mm-hmm.
to learn from a career perspective on how to, enhance your career by learning tools and techniques in this space as well.
Mm-hmm.
So really, there's certainly an advocacy part of the organization where we advocate around this thing called Edge AI, and we help people accelerate their business, and that's
Uh-huh.
all good. But really, our mission is around education.
Okay.
We are an educational nonprofit focused on, I would say, empowerment through knowledge, right? So
Okay.
you learn about new things and what's happening in a particular space, then you can be empowered personally with your career, or you can empower your business, or you can do all kinds of things. So I would say that's the broader mission,
Mm-hmm.
is around this empowerment through knowledge.
Okay. And you have events and training courses and as well, right? More all on the.
Yeah. So, community these days means lots of things.
Yeah.
We have probably over 100,000 people subscribed and following our stuff
Mhm.
across many different channels.
Okay.
So there's like every week on our YouTube channel, there's a new show,
Mm-hmm.
live stream or something.
Yeah.
We have live events that we put on 3 times a year. We just had one in Milan for 3 days.
Yeah.
We have one in Taipei, November 11th and 12th. It's going to be huge.
Mm-hmm.
And we had one in Austin, Texas earlier in the year. So we do those things, and that brings together people for a few days to really, learn and see demos and meet people and really kind of soak in the whole Edge AI space.
Okay.
And then we also bring the community to events. So we'll be at the Things Conference in Amsterdam. We're going to Embedded World,
Mm-hmm.
and typically we'll host like a bunch of tech talks.
Okay.
We'll pay for drinks at a party or something, do a little sponsorship mixer thing, and really kind of bring the community in to participate in these broader industry events. So, like for example, if you go to Embedded World
Yeah.
in North
Remember. Yeah.
America, you'll we will have a list of everyone who's doing Edge AI at Embedded World. You'll be able to know who's doing what at what booth,
Mm.
and come to our party in the evening and meet everybody who's actually doing this stuff. And so if you're into Edge AI and going to the show, we will help navigate your experience so that you'll get the most Edge AI bang for your buck, as they say.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so specifically looking at Edge AI, there have been a lot of talk. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of reasons to do Edge AI and such,
Hmm.
but most of the focus right now, the energy, the investments,
Hmm.
is on cloud, right? Especially when it comes to Gen AI.
Hmm.
Uh, why do you think is that the case? Also, there is AI happening on the edge, but not so much Gen AI, right? Or
Yeah, it's a different level of visibility. I mean, frankly,
yeah.
one of the breakthrough moments with ChatGPT and
Mm-hmm.
all of its ilk was that it was very end user facing. You could go to a prompt and type in something and start talking to the computer, quote unquote.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that really, I think, transcended a lot of kind of cultural phenomenon, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's and so now we're seeing it translate into some more real world applications. Like AI based note taking is very popular.
Yeah.
Using it to help augment some of your content creation is very popular.
Yep.
Um, and we're even seeing it, augment and even replace some functions, right,
Yep. Yeah.
as well. So that's on its own track, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the stuff that's happening on the edge, like I said, going back to the definition, is really happening in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So, things around, safety and security, transportation, agriculture, healthcare, med tech. I mean, when you walk into the doctor's office
Mm-hmm.
these days, look around, there's probably 100 pieces of tech. And a lot of those are going to have AI workloads running in them to help
Mm-hmm.
kind of get to results faster. So it's a little less in your face. It's a little less. I was actually talking to Procter and Gamble this morning. They have a toothbrush that uses Edge AI to sort of determine your brushing whatever, and that's hidden. That's hidden. They don't call it an AI toothbrush.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe they should, but it's built into these products and systems around you now to optimize things, to get better results, to get better insights, anomaly detection, for example, looking for faults in mechanical equipment. So that stuff's a little less visible, but it's definitely there, and it's proliferating like crazy.
Uh-huh.
Pretty much every industry is trying to use AI to really, go to the next level, whether it's optimizing costs or growing customer satisfaction or, improving crop yields or whatever, water quality. So we see it across the board, and we have an industry working group, in fact. And one of the challenges is, well, what industry should we focus on? There's so many
Yeah.
that are
Right.
leaping in with stuff. So
Yeah, and so that also is a challenge, as you mentioned. It's like so diverse and so wide ranging, right? And it's very hard to address with a single stroke of pen on how to do it, be it standards, be it implementation, be it bring to word. Are you looking at advising or guiding the industry towards some common be it standards or something like that, or any initiatives on that front?
yeah, we have a couple of things. Like we have our working groups
Okay.
in different tech topics, and they're trying to publish best practices. So if you go to our website, there's white papers on generative AI and the edge, and data set quality, and where these are pretty big companies and startups working together to sort of take the friction out of some of these areas so that things can go faster.
Yeah.
So best practices and publishing those are big. We publish community high quality data sets. We're about to launch a kind of a leaderboard for audio AI
Mm-hmm.
models, which is good. And we also have our industry working group. I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
we try to highlight like best practices for like deployments. So like we did a live stream about aquaculture in Japan and how they were using that for, fish farming and quality.
Mm-hmm.
So we're hoping that like these patterns or blueprints can be seen and replicated, right? So it's like, well, here's how this company solved this problem, and here's the stack they used.
Yeah.
Um, Other companies can see that and replicate that. And we're also seeing a lot more solution providers out there that are, I wouldn't say boutique, but they specialize in this space. Like they know how to, collect the right data sets, and they know how to train models and develop and deploy embedded, systems and cloud systems to solve problems. So it is happening out there. And I think if you're a Fortune 500, for sure, there's no shortage of resources to
Yeah.
get folks help you solve problems with it. But it is a diverse space. I mean, that's one of the strengths is that it can be a very heterogeneous space.
Yeah, indeed. And in terms of models and such, I mean, obviously, everybody, you get up in the morning, there are like a couple of new models coming, right?
Sure. Yeah.
In terms of, there is Gen AI, which where all the rage is, and there is also non-Gen AI. A lot of the edge AI cases, use cases are non-Gen AI, right? So,
Yeah.
uh, in terms of models that you're seeing, are they kind of optimized or tuned models from these larger companies, or you see there are inherent models developed for this specific domains and use cases for edge?
Yeah, it is kind of, I would say, horses for courses. Depends on the problems you're trying to solve.
Uh-huh.
Is kind of leads you to the right models and just like the right equipment and platforms, right? So
Yeah.
we are seeing like Llama and Gemini coming out with I would say 16 billion or less parameters, which is something that
Mm-hmm.
you put on the edge. Typically, it's about a gig of RAM per billion parameters. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing people come out with some of the larger foundation models that are tuned for more edge deployments.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening. There's other companies like the Falcon model out of Abu Dhabi that's designed for the edge from the beginning as a transformer based architecture, which
Mm-hmm.
is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then there's YOLO and there's some other things that are more, they're not transformer architecture, but they are, doing some cool vision AI stuff and
Mm-hmm.
other anomaly detection things. So, and you can, use lots of these different models together.
Yeah.
A typical solution may have lots of pieces and the AI models can be running at different parts from the edge all the way to the cloud together.
Yeah.
So it's not a one model solves all problems.
Yeah. And then a lot of the models, I mean, the especially on the industrial side, because there is so much of you know patents and copyrights and so on, and the data is go right. So they don't want to give that data away. So I'm assuming there are a lot of. I mean, I've seen a lot of models coming from the larger players in the industry for their own use. More proprietary models as well, right? So
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing people take transformer based architecture or language models, maybe small language models, and training them on a corpus of proprietary data to do something very specific,
yeah,
right? So maybe you want to look at, maybe you're a lumber mill and you want to look at the board quality and so you're training on some very specific data to look for some specific things.
correct. Yeah,
You're not using that AI to like write haikus or like draw unicorns or anything, right? So
yeah.
you don't need all that stuff. So you're training it on more focused data around the scenario and you can get some really good results with it.
Yeah, and especially when Edge AI, the use cases are so specific. A lot of cases make sense to train a model from that domain and have a model for that domain tailor made rather than just taking a generic model trained on generic data and applying it. Right?
Yeah, and you can also see people like stitching together like visual language models
Uh-huh.
and like low power sensors. So
Yeah.
the language model that could be trained on a very large corpus of data could provide like actual context about what is the sensor sensing.
Okay.
So imagine you walked up to an engine
Hmm.
and instead of putting in a ODB port probe or whatever and reading a bunch of
Yeah.
codes, it just here's what's wrong with me,
Okay.
or any kind of really complex. You walk into a hospital room
Yeah.
and you could say, "How's this patient doing?" And the LLM could actually aggregate a lot of sensor data or sensor fusion
Yeah.
and then come up with a good
Okay.
response.
Okay.
So there's lots of interesting stitching together of this stuff that's happening.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then that's also basically that kind of addresses this question on whether it's cloud or edge, right? It's not a cloud or edge, it is cloud and edge. And it's basically a hybrid AI that ultimately we'll see, right?
Yeah, it's not edge versus cloud,
Yeah.
right? It's really edge and cloud. And in fact, the edge itself is a multi-dimensional edge, right?
Yeah.
There's sensors and gateways and on-prem equipment that maybe then will probably ladder up to a hyperscaler at some
Yeah.
point. So you really have to think of it as a continuum of AI workloads working together.
Yeah, great, exactly. When I look at it, I think there is dearth of this, call it management or a framework or a architecture wherein you fuse either multiple models all on the edge or models from the cloud and the edge together, right? It's, I mean, people are doing on their own now, but they kind of become proprietary implementations. Do you see a move towards a common framework wherein I can, plug and play multiple models, be it edge or be it cloud, and make it work for my specific use case? Have you seen that much? I see that people talking about, oh, it'll be hybrid cloud and all, but I haven't seen that implemented in a standard way. A lot of it is more proprietary now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is definitely, there's work being done around
Mm-hmm.
portability. Portability of models across
Yeah.
platforms, and there's frameworks like PyTorch framework and Onyx framework and things that will help move things
Yeah.
across. Um, At the same time, there's also a lot of innovation going on, right? There's like neuromorphic computing and there's like new architectures and all kinds of like, there's RISC-V based accelerators and things that require their own tool
Yeah.
chains. And so if you really want ultra low power and high performance,
Mm-hmm.
then, it's not your standard chip. So we also like need to have room for that kind of innovation as well. So there are like ways to sort of round the edges, I would say, but there isn't a kind of right once. We're not at a right once run anywhere plug and play
Mm-hmm.
state. I mean, I think that'll come down the line as the technology matures more.
Yeah.
Uh, and we're always looking for, like you said, the companies working together in our foundation, trying to round those edges and take the points of friction out. But yeah, I mean, it's never really going to be 100%.
Yeah. Do you host any of the models, or it is
We do. We have Edge AI Labs. If you go to our
okay?
website, there's a
Okay.
bunch of models on there. We have a partner called EmbedUR that has a pretty cool model zoo. We also host data sets for the community there.
Okay.
You can also sign up for challenges. You can do all kinds of things. So yeah, we are putting out more community code.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're right. I mean, best practices about how the whole stack works together and more patterns that people can replicate is really going to accelerate things.
Yeah, I think that's that. An AGI Foundation is kind of a right place to shepherd the industry towards making right decisions. Right now, enterprises or deployment application, they have to do a lot of their homework to understand what they need and what is out there in the market, and then ultimately decide what best suits their need. And which is especially AGI companies are in the small and medium sized businesses, it is a lot of work and overhead for them. An organization like yours can come up with and then do the initial work for them and take that away, and they have much easier decision making process rather than doing a lot of the work on their own. I think that's a lot of value for them, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are becoming much more of a destination for companies that are looking to leverage edge AI for their business.
Yeah.
So you imagine, hospitality, retail, industrial, I mentioned some of those industries, agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
coming to the foundation, learning about what this stuff is, what can it do, who's doing what,
Mm-hmm.
who should I work with, and then diving into it. So in fact, we're going to be launching some education, I would call edge AI literacy programs
Mm-hmm.
fall where people can kind of get their 100 level literacy and kind of learn the basics and the taxonomy. And then from there, they can then decide, well, how can this help me, affect my business, right? Because they know their business really well, but they probably don't know Edge AI very.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
We want to close that gap and be a place where they can come in a product neutral environment and learn and understand and then find the right partners.
Correct. Yeah. So that's perfect. So and the AI is rapidly evolving too, right? It was regular standard AI ML before, then Gen AI came with a huge bang. Now there's a lot of agentic AI happening, and then AGI, artificial general intelligence, is lurking around as well. So it's a lot of work for the smaller organizations to keep up with all of this happening while they have to do their day job, right?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of buzzwords out there, a lot of hype, and
Yeah.
we try to help people cut through that hype to the reality of what's
Yeah.
possible and who's doing what. And you're right, it is a lot to learn, and that's why I think a lot of these companies are trying to find trusted partners and places to go where they can, like I said, we are not a product company, we're an education nonprofit, so that's kind of our job is to help them.
Cool. So, in terms of proliferation happening, I mean, of edge AI as such, do you see the growth is more gradual, or you see?
No, I mean, I would say our growth is Tremendous. I mean, this past year,
Okay.
we've gotten tons of partners joining, new working groups springing up, more
Hmm.
attendance at our events has gone way up.
Yeah.
It's like we're staffing up. I mean, frankly, I'm adding new staff and
Okay.
to keep up with with what's going on.
Yeah.
If you go to our events page, I mean, it's packed with stuff every month. I cannot replicate myself to be everywhere at all times. So it's exciting and it's exciting to see where the industry's going and also with the universities. There's a lot of new curriculum out there around Edge AI
Hmm.
universities, and so we're more and more students and engineers are getting produced, that are becoming experts in this space. So I think it's just going to keep growing.
Okay. Cool. So, I mean, of course, AI is across the board. In terms of enterprise edge AI, anything specific you guys are doing, or it's all part of the industry process and
Yeah, I mean, well, if you think about enterprise,
yeah.
there's I would say we're typically more on the OT side than the IT side, right?
Hmm.
I mean, certainly there's edge AI happening in the enterprise, depending on the
Yeah.
industry. But and even like a lot of equipment in offices and things like that. I mean, it's everyone encounters it now when they go into conference rooms and you know uh, room occupancy is an edge AI scenario, for
Hmm.
example. Safety and security is edge AI scenario. People counting, lots of stuff in the enterprise. And of course, we're seeing it in retail and hospitality, quick serve restaurants. Next, when you go through a drive through next time, you'll think about how much edge AI is happening with counting cars in the parking lot and putting fries in the fryer later. I mean, it's becoming ubiquitous.
Okay. Cool. You see, as you said, there's a lot of growth, but this, how do you foresee this move from right now? Probably like 70 to 80% of the focus is on the cloud. That moving towards edge,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's like I said. I mean, probably 80% of the data is created on the edge. It's just a
yeah,
matter of getting people's heads wrapped around the fact that they could process it there and not have to spend the money to send it to the cloud and then spend the
yeah,
money to get it back.
yeah,
So I think people are getting wiser around OpEx and cloud costs.
yeah,
And as the edge becomes more capable, it's like, oh, actually, I can reduce my OpEx. I can have more control over the data. I can get better latency, better privacy, and more effective results using the edge. So I think the edge will hopefully start to become the default place to process AI. And you'll go to the cloud when you need to, for training and for other like time series insights and things like that. But I think we're heading in that direction. And it's a combination of the tech being ready and the education and awareness.
and also a lot of the investment right now is happening in training, on training side of things, right?
Mm,
And as
yeah.
we move towards more of inferencing and less training, that also see the move towards edge.
Yeah, I mean, training is cost,
Yeah,
inferencing is revenue,
yeah,
right? So
exactly. Yeah,
nobody gets paid on training. So
yeah,
we think the edge, and that's the other thing too, is as you commercialize technology products, they all start on the cloud,
yeah.
but then there's like, well, can we reduce the costs and can we make it more flexible? And so it's always commercializing toward the edge. That's the gravitational pull is toward the edge as you commercialize solutions, right? There's
Hmm.
always a need for lower cost and lower operating and simpler effectiveness. So I think the edge is kind of where it's at.
Yeah, cool. So, going forward, how do you see Edge AI Foundation expanding, and what's your roadmap for the next 3 or 5 years?
Yeah, well, 5 years is a long time,
Yeah.
but like I said, we're going to launch the certification program in the fall.
Okay.
Stay tuned for that. Certainly, people should follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube
Yeah,
to get
tell
in
us
on that.
about that. What does it entail? What does certification mean?
Yeah, so it'll be basically we're certifying knowledge levels in
Mm-hmm.
Edge AI.
Mm.
So you'll be able to get trained and get your 100 level certification and get a LinkedIn badge, and it'll say that you know your stuff at the 100 level, and then we'll have 200 level badges and 300 level.
Okay.
And so depending on whether you're a product manager or a software developer or hardware developer, you'll sort of take different levels and have different badges. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a big initiative for us because we see a big gap in knowledge there.
Okay.
And we've had a lot of our partners say, "Can you help educate people to a level of literacy?" And we're not in the product training business. I mean,
Yeah.
you can go to Qualcomm to do that, and Intel and folks,
Yeah.
but do want to raise the bar in terms of literacy on this space. And so that's one of our big initiatives. And that'll be for not only individuals, but also corporations for workforce development.
I see.
They'll be able to educate their departments on what is this stuff and how does it work. So that's a big initiative for us.
And then you're working with your members and others in the industry in terms of recognizing these certifications, right? Is there
Right.
putting as a requirement in their job
Yeah.
postings and so
It'll be
on?
like a prerequisite for training, like make sure you get your AGI 100 badge before you do this course
Okay.
and so forth. So I think that'll be a big expansion area for us. We're
Hmm.
also expanding geographically.
Hmm.
We have this event in Taiwan, November 11th, 12th. We also have a symposium for the first time in Japan in October.
Uh-huh.
Um, we're probably going to get in 2026, enter India in a big way,
Hmm.
uh, Middle East. So we have geographic expansion on the horizon for sure.
About China, its own ecosystem, or
China's a little bit of a special
yeah,
case. Yeah, it's so complicated,
yeah,
but we'll be in
yeah,
Taiwan, so there's that. So there's some geographic expansion into Latin America as well, and then I think some of these, industry verticals, like we really want to bring the community and the knowledge
yeah.
into, restaurant association and like the manufacturing association, like bring it to that community so that they really get empowered with the knowledge as well. So I think those are the kind of three big growth vectors.
Yeah, excellent. And I really like the vertical approach, right? These are especially the small and medium sized business. These are the ones who really need this technology but don't have all the expertise to implement them right away, right? So the tech, I think, there's a lot of resources that they have to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's as you know, it's a pretty flat world out there, so you can empower people to do some pretty amazing things locally without spending a lot of money, which is kind of exciting.
Right.
So,
All right, great. Thanks for the great discussion. Thank you very much for coming on to the show and giving your insights on the edge AI economy and industry as well as the foundation.
yeah, fantastic. No, I really appreciate the opportunity.
So, folks, that's all we have for now. Hope you found this discussion informative and useful. If so, please hit like and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening this on. I'll be back soon with another episode, putting light on another interesting tech subject. Bye bye for now.